Good afternoon. It's Tuesday, April 25th. I'm Laura Cornfield, and this is IBA News broadcasting live from Jerusalem. Visiting German Foreign Minister Sigmar Gabriel said it would be regrettable if Prime Minister Netanyahu goes ahead and cancels their meeting this afternoon because of the foreign minister's plans to meet with members of Breaking the Silence and B'Tselem. Gabriel told reporters it would be unthinkable if Netanyahu visited Germany and was told not to meet with people critical of the government there. The German foreign minister made the statements a day after Netanyahu threatened to cancel the meeting scheduled between the two today because of the foreign minister's plans to meet with the organizations viewed as being hostile to Israel. A spokeswoman for the German foreign minister said he would be meeting with a number of civilian groups during his two-day visit to the country, but refrained from giving further details. Education Minister Naftali Bennett praised Netanyahu for his stand, while opposition leader Isaac Herzl said such a move harms Israel's ties with Germany, who is a good friend to the Jewish state. Austrian Chancellor Christian Kern participated in a Holocaust memorial ceremony yesterday in Jerusalem and later met with Israeli politicians and businessmen and Palestinian entrepreneurs to discuss joint cooperation in high-tech and economic projects. Knesset member Arel Margalit organized yesterday's meeting that included Bashir Masri, who created the new Palestinian city, Rawabi. Margalit told reporters he plans to create a number of economic projects that he believes will help make regional peace, including a regional high-tech project with some 10 Middle Eastern countries. Kern spoke about his personal ties to the Holocaust and his vision for future joint projects with Israel and the Palestinians.
My grandmother was working as a housekeeper for an old Jewish couple. And then the Nazis took over. They had to hide at the garret. And my mother in these days was a little girl. She was 10, 11 years old. And she brought the food which was cooked by my grandmother to the elderly couple. And one day at the doorstep, she was received by the Gestapo officers, and they chased her away, a little girl. There's a lot of headroom for cooperation between us, Palestine and Israel especially. This could contribute to a prospering region, which is very important for a peaceful development.
The country's top security echelon sent an angry letter to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, warning him that the bill authorizing the National Cyber Bureau severely jeopardizes the security of the State of Israel. Channel 2 reported the letter, signed by the head of the Mossad, Yossi Cohen, head of the Shin Bet Security Agency, Nadav Argaman, Deputy Chief of Staff, Yair Golan, and Director General of the Defense Ministry, Udi Adam, urged the government to halt the planned legislation because it grants the Bureau excessive authority. Last August, the Knesset proposed to reform an existing legislation that would grant the Bureau powers and incorporate all the country's cyber defense groups under one body. At the time, a temporary amendment allowed the Prime Minister to appoint Baruch Carmeli to head the National Cyber Bureau temporarily until 2018. The country's leading security establishments were reportedly promised that the authority would fully cooperate with them, but after receiving details of the proposed law, realized this would not be the case. The security heads are demanding an immediate cessation of the legislation's advancement and adjustments made to meet the security interests of the country. The Knesset plenum today approved the first reading of the bill, which seeks to postpone the launching of the new Israel Public Broadcasting Corporation by 2 weeks until the 15th of May. The bill will be brought for second and third readings tomorrow. The new corporation was initially slated to replace the existing Israel Broadcasting Authority next Sunday, April 30th. However, in the meantime, there are behind-the-scenes efforts to delay operations of the new IPBC by an additional 2 weeks until the 1st of June. The efforts are spearheaded by Likud MK Yoav Kish, who claims that the tight timetable doesn't enable the proper establishment of the separate news apparatus that was agreed upon by Prime Minister Netanyahu and Finance Minister Kahlon. Head of the coalition, David Bitan, said he supports an additional extension only on the condition that the finance minister will approve the move as well. The annual ANZAC Day Memorial ceremony took place at the Commonwealth Military Cemetery on Mount Scopus here in Jerusalem. Cameraman Barry Levinson was there and brought us this report.
There was a solemn tone on this sunny morning at Jerusalem's Immaculate Commonwealth Military Cemetery For Australians and New Zealanders, April 25th is ANZAC Day, which commemorates the ill-fated landing of their troops in Gallipoli in 1915 and the huge toll in their battle against the Turks in the Great War. Over the years, it has been the day to commemorate all those diggers and Kiwis who died while serving their countries in war, conflicts, and peacekeeping operations. This October, Australians will be marking the 100th anniversary of the key victory of the Battle of Beersheba by an Australian Light Horse Brigade, which crushed the Turkish lines and led to the capture of Jerusalem.
31st of October is the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Beersheba, and the 2nd of November, of course, is the 100th anniversary of the Balfour Declaration. And those two events were very closely intertwined. I mean, the Balfour Declaration, a political statement, depended upon military conditions which only the Battle of Beersheba could bring about, and the broader Palestine campaign. So for the 31st of October, we'll have high-level representatives over here. Our Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, has already promised to attend. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has promised to host him. They will both participate in a major commemorative service down in Beersheba on the morning of the 31st of October. And we already know of about 4,000 to 5,000 Australians who are all planning to make the trip here to be involved with that.
Including some volunteer light horse, actually reenacting the battle?
Yeah, the Australian Light Horse Association will be coming and they intend to reenact part of the charge. There'll be a whole lot of other service groups, family members of soldiers who fought in that campaign or in other campaigns who have come here to honour their sacrifice. So it will be a very special occasion, and in many senses that battle is the foundation stone of the modern day relationship between the Australian people and the Israeli peoples.
Over 1,300 Australian servicemen died in the battles here, as well as 640 New Zealanders. For them, the battles here helped forge their identities.
ANZAC Day is unique, and it's unique because this is when the Australian and New Zealanders, newborn nations at that time of the Great War, were forged into that specific event of the landing in Gallipoli, and that's where actually we can say that the military history on one hand and the national identity were formed and forged during that campaign. It's commemorated worldwide as an ANZAC Day, which is a big thing all over Australia and New Zealand. It's a day off from school, etc., and people commemorate it all over. Here in Israel, this is the humble assembly which is commemorating that event. The Society for the Heritage of World War I in Israel was formed to promote knowledge and introduction to the general public here in Israel and abroad as to the activities of this theater of war during the Great War, which had a tremendous and profound effect on the formation of the Middle East and the State of Israel.
And so as the centenary of the battles is marked, so too are the strengthening relations between Israel and Australia.
In a raid overnight in the West Bank town of Hawara near Nablus, police and a special antiquities unit from the civil administration confiscated hundreds of stolen artifacts said to be worth thousands of dollars and arrested one Palestinian suspected of antiquities trafficking. According to police, the artifacts stem from different historical periods and include hundreds of coins, jewelry, and pottery. President Rivlin criticized French presidential candidate Marine Le Pen for suggesting that France's wartime government played no role in advancing the Holocaust. Speaking at the closing ceremony of the Holocaust Remembrance Day last night at Kibbutz Lochamei Getaot, Rivlin called her statements disturbing. The French presidential candidate denies France's responsibility for the deportation of its Jewish citizens to the death camps, and another member of Le Pen's National Front party denied Jews were murdered, the president declared. He noted that this phenomenon is repeating itself in other countries, such as Poland, Ukraine, and Britain, where a former member of the Labour Party claimed Jewish Zionists cooperated with Hitler. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has instructed ministers and senior officials to examine ways of delaying the implementation of the court-ordered closure of the ammonia storage tank in Haifa Bay. At a meeting yesterday with Environmental Protection Minister Ze'ev Elkin and Economics Minister Eli Cohen, the Prime Minister asked them to investigate the possibility of allowing the tank to continue operating for a number of weeks until an alternative is found. The Prime Minister reportedly raised concerns that emptying the tank may lead to the collapse of the local fertilizer industry and jeopardize the jobs of thousands of workers. In response, the Haifa municipality issued a statement saying it expects the Prime Minister to remove the daily threat that endangers the lives of hundreds of thousands of residents. Earlier this month, the state requested from the Supreme Court to grant it a 2-month extension in order to empty the tank and store ammonia in an alternative location. This after the Haifa District Court ruled in March that the ammonia tank must be emptied by April 1st. Among the honorees chosen to light the 12 torches symbolizing the 12 tribes of Israel at this year's festive Independence Day ceremony on Mount Herzl is renowned Israeli author and civil servant Eli Amir. Ahead of the event, which officially kicks off celebrations around the country next Monday night, Amir, who emigrated to Israel from Baghdad in 1950 and spent much of his life working to reinforce the link between world Jewry and the State of Israel, sat down with IBA's Efrat Batat for a special one-on-one interview about his vast career and views of the political and social landscape in Israel 2017. Here's an excerpt from that interview.
I am proud of enormous achievement that this country achieved in all aspects of life, by the way. I am proud of the enormous success process of absorbing newcomers from all over the world and having them live together, but yet we are far from being idealistic country the way I see it. We are far of, there are extreme elements who want to harm the High Court, the democracy, the freedom of speech here in this country. They are investing milliards in the West Bank, which I think it is on vain, which is a burden to having peace with the Palestinians, and we have to have peace here, otherwise we won't be able to live in this crazy region. And I think it's even for justice themselves, they deserve their own state, and we deserve our own state. I don't see the processes to achieve all these targets that I'm telling you about. There is enormous gap, economically gap, between the different elements of the Israeli society. Most of the people who are poor people, they are in poor neighborhood in the big cities, and some of them in developing areas. And we have to bridge this gap. It is essential. It is extremely important. We have to build a nation. We built a state. We haven't built a nation. We haven't built people. And in order to build that, we have to invest enormous efforts with the needy people, with the poor people. These are the targets for the future.
The full interview with Eli Amir will be broadcast next Tuesday during our special Independence Day program. The rock band Radiohead, slated to perform in Israel this summer, is being inundated with demands from more than 50 artists, entertainers, and international figures to cancel their trip to the Jewish state. A letter signed by the likes of Desmond Tutu, Roger Waters, novelist Alice Walker, as well as other musicians, are calling on the band to boycott Israel. The signatures asked Radiohead, who campaigns for the freedom of Tibetans, not to perform in Israel, saying Palestinians have appealed to you to take one small step to help pressure Israel to end its violation of basic rights and international law. The letter that appears on the Artist Pledge for Palestine website concludes with a demand to the band to do what artists did in South Africa's era of oppression: stay away until the apartheid is over. Radiohead is scheduled to perform at the Hayarkon Park in Tel Aviv on July 19th. And staying with entertainment news, and the Igor Moiseyev Ballet Company is returning to Israel next week. 80 dancers will be on the stage in Tel Aviv, Haifa, and Jerusalem to celebrate their 80th anniversary. The troupe will perform traditional Russian dances, along with Ukrainian, Greek, and Argentinian folklore dances. Also on the bill, a special work dedicated to Jewish dance and music. The New York Times has said of the ballet company that their energy and precision has set audiences cheering worldwide. That's the Moiseyev Ballet, coming from May 5th through the 9th. Despite efforts to postpone the start of the new public broadcaster, there are still no plans to incorporate English news in any future programming. We're trying to do everything we can to influence decision makers and stress the significance of continuing English television broadcasts. If you wish to help us in this campaign, please write to the Minister of Communications, Tzachi Hanegbi, asking to keep English TV news alive. His email address and fax is on the screen below. That email is sar@moc.gov.il. Together, maybe we can all make a difference. In local money matters, shares were up on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange while the shekel was mixed in foreign currency trading. Here are the numbers. And the IBA weather team says temperatures are expected to rise significantly tomorrow, becoming unseasonably warm. Strong northerly winds will prevail along the coastal areas from noon. Here are the highs and lows at home and abroad. And that's all for this newscast. Join us again tomorrow, same time, same channel. Until then, I'm Laura Cornfield wishing you a good evening and shalom from Jerusalem.